This is Tim.
This is Jason.
And this is Critiquing Comics. Welcome to Critiquing Comics. This is Tim in Tokyo with Jason in Portland with a dog on his lap. And a dog on his shirt also. How are you doing?
There's a third dog on the floor.
Yeah.
It's just a dog kennel. I'm broadcasting live from the McNamara dog kennel. It's the dog's life, Tim.
Dog days of autumn, I guess. So we have another comic to talk about.
Another black metal title. These titles are great. We've had a great run of titles.
Berserker Monk, issue
Berserker
1.
Monk. I love it. 5 stars for the title alone.
And I have to apologize to the creators because this was sent to me on August 31st, and it's been a little while before we got to it. But there wasn't even a queue, really, of comics. It was just that I've had so much on my plate. But anyway, here we are. The creators are Josh Thompson, Gabriel Roldan, and Leland Bjerg, and I'm not clear on who did what here because the comic itself doesn't break down the credits. It's just those are the names. But Leland sent us this, and in his email he said, "Hi folks, book 3 of my series Berserker Monk launches on Kickstarter September 25th. That's how long ago this was. I'd love to hear your critique of it. It's an ultraviolet kung fu fantasy story told in fragments from the perspective of a series of unreliable narrators. Tarantino meets the Last Airbender. Thanks for taking a look." So I want to come back to that point about unreliable narrators, but first let's just talk about what's in this. So it starts with 5 kind of piratey looking people sitting around a table in what looks like maybe a British restaurant of the 1600s or 1700s, and one of them is telling about how the Berserker Monk was made, so kind of the origin story. Although first he gets kind of bogged down in this one pirate's gun, telling about that. It has nothing to do with the story.
They want to really explain that gun.
Yeah.
That was a weird detour into the machinations of justifying this very cool looking pirate gun / hatchet.
Right, yeah, it's got a big blade on it, and then so how do you holster it? Well, we did this with the holsters, and
how does the gun shoot true if you're constantly swinging it? Yeah, they justify it. They've got a little diagram and everything.
Yeah, it's like a page and a half of talking about this gun. But then somebody complains, "Oh, no, we'll get on with it. That has nothing to do with the monk." So
he's speaking for the audience, too. I was like, where is this going?
Right. So we get the whole story, and I didn't get the sense of unreliability on anyone's part through this main part of the origin story.
I didn't either until we get a separate so each person at this table presumably has a different tale of the Berserker Monk. So I appreciate you telling me this was an ongoing series, because at the end of this I was like, I don't really feel like I know what a Berserker Monk is.
Well, yeah, I had that same impression, especially, before I looked back at the email this morning and saw the bit about unreliable narrators, I was thinking, I really would have liked issue 1 to show us the monk in action so that we kind of know what the result of this origin is. But it seems like their thought is, so let's kind of have different takes on the monk, but I don't know.
There is an interstitial narrative of the monk in modern day, but that wasn't clear to me until the end of the book.
Yeah, I feel like the result was just I was kind of confused, especially when I got to the end. And there is an argument between a couple of the people about how dangerous the monk really is. One of them says, he's a killer, and the other says, he's harmless. And I wasn't really sure what to think about him. And yeah, then there's this whole other story at the end about whether he killed this king and all of that, and it's kind of a completely different story from the origin story.
Look, it's a different origin story. which I like. There's like that Rashomon quality where they're all telling different origin stories for this monk. I think that's a lot. If the whole series is that, that's going to be challenging, I think. But I could be wrong. I haven't read 2 or 3. I like this as an opening. I like it's well written. Let me say that. Like as far as like being putting us in a place and time, like the language is consistent, the voice is consistent.
And I like the art.
Yeah, the art's good, the coloring's good, even the lettering is pretty good.
I didn't notice anything to complain about with the lettering. Yeah, it seems pretty good.
I think there was like there was a caption or two that I thought the text was pushed a little close to the side. I thought some of the text in the captions could have used a little bit more air, but that's me. I'm a nitpicking when it comes to lettering. But the pirate story was so long, I figured that has to be the origin.
Yeah.
And then they give a different one. I'm like, oh, this is what we're doing. But in between these stories, there is what I assume is a modern take of the monk in battle, like punching through somebody's shield and armor. But yeah, I agree. If we had opened up, even if it was like a 4 to 6 page of what the monk is in modern day, and then we cut back to these people talking about how we got there, like a Kaiser Soze or something. Like you see the ramifications of their action, of their behavior, of their character, and then we discuss it. But you know, it's a minor point. I think they are getting the modern monk is in there. It's just not clear that we switched to modern times. It's a bit jarring.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and yeah, that second story, I think, I don't know, somehow I kind of bleeped past it because, yeah, the first version is so long that I just thought, okay, that's the story of this issue, and the rest of it seemed like, what's this doing here? It just kind of bounced off of me, that second story.
Right, because the first one's so long.
Uh-huh. It seems like that's the main thing because of its length.
I think if you read all the issues, the fuller story, it would be clear that each person has a different origin story, and eventually, I think the interstitial people in the bar story will catch up with the monk in the other story. So I think they're going through time, but I think these 4 people or 5 people will connect with the monk at some point in the future. Is how I feel. So I feel like this maybe is harder to read in issue format than it would be in a collection.
Mm-hmm.
But the writing is really sharp, actually. I think it's really hard to write fantasy well. So their description of let's say Tarantino meets The Last Airbender.
Right.
I think that's an excellent description of this. Because there is sort of a Tarantino dialogue focus of this. And I thought the pirate story was really good. I thought all the stories were really good. The fables that they tell were really, really sharp and well done. Even if we take a bit of a detour describing this gun, which, again, is a Tarantino indulgence, right? We'll just take some time to describe something in the world. And why not? It's their story. I sort of appreciate that this story doesn't really follow some sort of boilerplate template. I couldn't tell where it was going. So I think that's a nice surprise. When I feel like I haven't read a book 100 times before.
Yeah.
So even though I had a little bit of confusion about what the monk is, I found that the writing really crisp and the storytelling really good, that I just went along with it. And then it became clear sort of more where the monk was in the story.
And I liked it. So, I mean, this is not a comedy, but there are a few little funny places, and something about the art, too, just has a little feel of humor to it. Like, I got the feeling that the comic is not taking itself too seriously. It could, that would have killed it if it was like deadly serious, like type of art.
Yeah, you some of the teeth in this book, you have to laugh. Some of these dental plans are meant to inspire a bit of levity and mirth. But yeah, I thought it was the story. I don't want to give everything away, but the pirate story itself is actually pretty engaging. And maybe that's why it feels like it's a bigger part of the book, is because it's got some really good characterization, some really good twists and turns. The other origin story that we're presented with for the monk later on, it's a little bit more distant, right? It's all handled in captions.
Yeah.
So we don't really get a feel for the characters so much. One thing this team does, which can be a little bit exhausting, and it's just a stylistic choice, is writing the dialect sort of putting in. So, for example, I guarantee dem islanders got witchcraft. I was always taught not to do that. I think it's a choice. You do one or the other. So there's a lot of like local colloquialism, local language, slang that is like that took me a while to get on board with, like the way he talks.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't mind it as long as it doesn't obscure what he's saying. I mean, Chris Claremont made a career of writing like this.
Yeah, but they don't do that anymore. Like,
but
there's the sea cows, no smalls, they're sacred to the locals. Like, that's a lot. That's a big mouthful.
Well, and
I don't know that
it didn't feel like pirate language to me. I'm not sure where this guy's supposed to be from. Is he like from the Caribbean or something? It doesn't sound like, your standard British pirate.
Yeah, I think a little bit of that goes much further, right? Like maybe a duh every now and then. That was some of the jargon that I had a tougher time swallowing. Mm-hmm. But that's just me, and it's a stylistic thing. Like, you're right, Claremont absolutely did it to death, right? Did you know Remy LeBeau is French? Don't worry, he's going to use a French word every time he opens his mouth.
Yeah, and I think Banshee might be Irish.
You think so? I'm not racist. I'm just saying the guy looks Irish.
And he sounds Irish, don't you know?
Boyo. Everyone's a boyo. Yeah. He does everything but like throw 4-leaf clovers at you as his superpower.
Wear a little leprechaun hat.
Yeah. So this book is not that bad. It's not that egregious, the language. It just took me out a little bit to be like, wait, what is he saying? We're doing a lot of that. But this whole story is really, really charming. It has a nice turn. And the art is really energetic. Mm-hmm. The action is really done well. I could follow everything really well. It's not too busy. And there is like a mirth to it.
Yeah.
There's like a buoyancy to it that none of it feels too serious or too dire. You're allowed to enjoy it, even though there's some bloodshed. You're never meant to feel bad about it. So it's a really nice mix of tone and art and the color too. I think the color is really, really solid, actually.
Yeah, definitely.
You know what else I love? Well, while I'm doling out compliments, hand-drawn sound effects. If you have the opportunity in your artist's game, I love hand-drawn sound effects.
Yeah, that's definitely not Comicraft.
No, that is definitely not Blambot or Comicraft. I love it. It's just, it gives us such flavor that a digital lettering doesn't do on its own.
Yeah, it feels really part of the picture, not something that was slapped on top of it.
And to your point about tone, some of the sound effects actually describe what they're doing. So there's a
heal.
Mend, heal. I loved it. I thought that was great. In one of my books, that would look ridiculous. But given the tone and the flavor of this, I thought that was really, really smart. Smart choice.
Yeah, that was good. Yeah, so that's one of those points that, there is some humor in it. But doesn't really push the humor. It's not like it's trying to be a Mel Brooks movie or something.
No, but there is moments of levity that actually really serve it really well. I guess if I have any complaint about this is I think this would read better as a trade, but I know why you do it as an issue, because you need to fund it 22 pages at a time to pay your team to do that relay race of creating a graphic novel. Not everyone has the resources to fund a 100-page graphic novel out of pocket and then recoup it on the back. I don't anymore. I've done it in the past. It blew up in my face. So I think this model is just how indie people are meant to survive. And I think this is worth supporting, actually. I thought this was a really nice surprise.
Yeah.
And composition-wise, there's some like really smart compositions in this book. Especially like the last page.
Yeah.
That's an A. If one of my students brought this to me, that's an A+ composition. As far as coloring, lettering, everything works together to serve the story really, really well.
Yeah, and that last page, I think reading it digitally like this, in particular, it works because you're seeing the top of the page first, and it's just the guy sitting in front of the mountains, and then you scroll down and you see his victims. So you get kind of a reveal as you scroll down.
Yeah, and we've seen those scenes of him fighting those people, but but it wasn't super clear when those things were happening, right? Because so many tales are being told. It's hard to know that those interstitial scenes are the current time.
Yeah,
it's almost yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's, I think, the only thing that we were talking about is building up the monk more and making it clear that there's this monk, and then someone are telling stories about someone, because they're telling stories about someone we haven't met.
Right.
So it's a little harder to get engaged. So I think if you're going to make a trade of this, and I'm talking to the team right now, think about a prologue, or think about adding a couple pages in the beginning as an incentive to backers to come back for the trade, and also just to give an idea of the monk's power and veracity.
Yeah, and as far as unreliable narrators, it would be interesting to show us the monk as he really is, and then have a caption of one of these people saying something that's not true, and there's a clear contrast between what they're saying and what the monk is actually doing. You know, like somebody saying, "Oh, he's harmless," and then a picture of him, you know, chopping a guy's head off or something.
Well, I think they do exactly that, just not back to back, not so crisply compared. But I think that's in here. So yeah, how did their third issue do on Kickstarter? Do we know?
Well,
did we miss it?
Yeah. So apparently, they sent us the first issue, but they're further ahead. So this is Berserker Monk 3, Issues of Kung Fu Frenzy, and as we're recording, it has 16 days to go, and it's not to its goal yet, but it looks like it could get there.
Well, I hope we get this out in time to help them, because I think this is a really strong vision from the team.
Try to get it out as soon as I can, and I'll link to the Kickstarter.
Where are they? They are at... Their goal is only 1,500? Come on. What is getting funded if not a book this good? Oh, Kickstarter, you betray me. You know, if they had just put like a half-naked woman on the cover, this would have made $100,000.
Yeah, for sure.
That breaks my heart. But you know, they're halfway through and they're halfway to their goal, and I think this is well done.
Yeah. So Japan time, it needs to be funded by October 26th. I think it would be the 25th in the States. And
Japan is a week ahead of the United States, if I understand.
Not quite, but when you guys are on daylight time, Tokyo is 13 hours ahead of Eastern time.
So you are celebrating Thanksgiving this weekend?
Not quite.
Oh, okay.
We're celebrating tomorrow from your point of view.
Oh, my gosh. Well, you're always a day away, Tim.
Okay.
Leland Bjerg is the writer, and Josh Thompson is the illustrator. So great job.
Yeah, and colored by Gabriel Roldan. I see that. Okay. Okay, great. So if you would like us to critique your comics, send a PDF or a link to mail@deconstructingcomics.com, and we'll talk about it here. So thanks for listening, and thank you, Jason.
Yeah, I just want to say the covers, too, for issues 2 and 3 are fantastic. The cover's got even better. I love that cover for number 2. Great job. Heartbreaking that more people have not discovered this book. You know, but also it's got a really strong tone and vibe, and not every book is for everybody. But if you're into this type of work, I think this is a really successful project.
Yeah, it looks good. The Kickstarter for Berserker Monk is linked from the show notes. Thanks for listening, and we hope to see you here Wednesday for Emmett's talk with John Morrow about his book, Old Gods and New, about Jack Kirby's creation of the Fourth World. Bye for now.